Hello, viewers. We start with another edition of the playlist in Milieu for the YouTube channel Lex Consilium Foundation. Here in conversation with Senior Advocate Sudhish Pai relating to his book, The Legends of Law. And we would now, in the new edition, talk about the magnetic and renowned personality of MC Chagla, perhaps one of the most illustrious Chief Justices of Bombay High Court. My question to you is that Chagla had initially started as a junior in the chamber of Mr. Jinnah, but after some time you've written that he became disillusioned with Jinnah's excessive involvement in politics and also with regard to his future there in that chamber. Would you like to explain this?
MC Chagla, as you said, is one of the most illustrious judges, not only of the Bombay High Court, but one of the most illustrious judges that this country has ever seen. If you look for an ideal judge, Chagla would be on the top of the list.
He had all the qualities
And
needed.
all the qualities that one would look for
Yes.
in a judge. Maybe we'll come to that in a little later, but to
Yes.
answer your first question, Chagla came back to India after being called to the bar from the inner temple. And interestingly, he mentions that he had a holiday for about 2 weeks in Allahabad, in the home of Sir Tej Bahadur Sapru, whose eldest son, P.N. Sapru, who later became a judge, was his class fellow. They were together in England and very, very close friends. And Sir Tej had offered a place to Chagla in his chamber as a junior. The great junior Sir Shah Suleiman was going to the bench. Of course, it was very attractive, Chagla says, but then he was keen to be in his own hometown of Bombay, and therefore he did not
Agree, yeah.
agree and take the offer of Sir Tej Bahadur and came back to Bombay and joined Jinnah's chamber. Jinnah, of course, was a very successful and a very well-known advocate. Chagla himself says, not a lawyer. Chagla makes that distinction of Jinnah being a great advocate, almost a poor lawyer. He could put across things very effectively, but his grounding in law, according to Chagla, was
Not up
well,
to the mark.
yes, to put it very mildly, not up to the mark.
Yeah.
Because he's supposed to have famously said that an act of the British Parliament could be ultra virus. That is so in other places, but you know, in England, Parliament is supreme and sovereign, and no court declares an act as ultra virus. But Jinnah had said that that is about Jinnah. But Jinnah was, you know, his professional etiquette and conduct were absolutely impeccable. It is one of the etiquettes of the British bar that you don't name your junior for a case. Jinnah would be briefed for many cases, and if he was asked which junior would be, who should be,
Yes.
would say there are so many juniors in Bombay, you can name any of them. But he would never say that you brief Chagla or anyone else in his chamber. That was a disadvantage to those in the chamber, but then he maintained those high standards of professional etiquette. And many were the days when Chagla was virtually briefless, and he would attend all conferences of Jinnah, and Jinnah would drop him regularly at the bar Gymkhana, which Chagla says was the home of all briefless barristers waiting for briefs. And that is also another personal incident. Chagla's father had a case in the Bombay High Court, some personal litigation, small litigation. They were not that well off to pay any lawyer's fees. And Chagla reluctantly approached his own senior Jinnah, but Jinnah was not willing to take up anything without a fee. It was then that Chagla approached the great Sir Jamshedji Kanga, Palkiwala's senior Sirvaisi. And Sir Jamshedji very willingly took it, fought it, and won the case for Chagla's father and didn't take any fee. Is also one of the special reasons for the special chemistry between Chagla and Sir Jamshed. So, of course, Jinnah, this continued. Then Jinnah became more and more involved in politics. Of course, as we all know, to begin with, Jinnah was a very secular politician. But over the years, somehow he moved on to the extreme
Yes.
communal politics. It is that which made Chagla totally disillusioned, because Chagla was out and out a secular nationalist. He was not so much disillusioned with his professional prospects, but he was absolutely disillusioned with Jinnah's communal politics. That was perhaps the main reason that they parted ways. And of course, Chagla began on his own and slowly made his way.
On another occasion, page 357 of the book, you have mentioned that once Chagla had been elevated and was a judge in Bombay High Court, and he was sitting with the Chief Justice Beaumont. He was asked suddenly by the Chief Justice that you deliver this judgment, and he was supposed to deliver it, come out extempore. Kindly paint that picture as
Yes,
you have indicated in your book so brilliantly.
Chagla is, of course, 1941 to 1958, in his 17 years on the bench. He is one of our judges who is known to have delivered extempore judgments. Whatever the case, however heavy, he has reserved judgment only in 3 cases. And those 3 were full bench matters. Judgment was reserved only to see if all the 3 judges could agree on everything. Not
Yes.
because Chagla was reluctant to dictate judgment. So on his very first day as a judge, it was what we in some courts called interlocutory matters. In the Bombay High Court, they called it chamber summons. Chagla was sitting for chamber summons, and on both sides were eminent counsel appearing. And so he says he was a little nervous as to what to do. To use his own words, he said, I took courage in both hands and said, well, you must proceed because otherwise it will never happen, and dictated his judgment. This was, of course, sitting single in chamber summons. Soon thereafter, sitting with Chief Justice Momo, I think they were hearing some income tax references, if I'm not wrong. And he expected the Chief Justice would be delivering judgment. And Momo was known for his on-the-spot judgments, as we spoke about a little earlier. But as soon as the arguments were over, John Momo just sat back and said, fire off judgment, I have lost my voice. So Chagla was a little reluctant, but then again, he said, well, you can't be that and dictate an extempore judgment, and then told him, sorry, you should have given me a little notice. I thought you would do it. No, nothing was required. You did it very well.
Great.
So that's the incident.
But that must have given a lot of confidence to Chagla for his subsequent days and years as a judge. You have also mentioned about, if I can say, a brush off between Chagla and K.L. Gauba, who was also a well-known name in Bombay High Court.
Yes.
Would you like to describe that?
K.L. Gauba was from the Punjab, if I'm not wrong, but practicing in Bombay, as you said, a well-known. This was an unfortunate incident, but the incident brings out, as I said, what a judge Chagla was. This is one of those illustrations where you can definitely say no higher ideal could be thought of. In the outside the judges' chambers, there were some parking slots where no parking signs were. Gauba took up the position that the Chief Justice had no authority to put up those no parking signs. The property belonged to the Bombay Municipal Corporation and not to the High Court. He filed a case. The Chief Justice was called as a witness, and Chagla very unhesitatingly, like any other citizen, went to the City Civil Court in Bombay, stood before his someone who is below him in the judicial hierarchy, and gave evidence. It is said that Gauba put him all sorts of unpleasant and unnecessary questions and made it a little unpleasant for him. That was over. I really don't remember what was the outcome of the case. But what is absolutely important for us is what happened almost a month later. Chagla was then the Chief Justice, as you, and that's why he had put those no parking board. So Chagla was presiding in the first court, and Gauba had a matter before the Chief Justice, and Gauba was arguing, and the Chief Justice heard him with all courtesy and grace. Not a muscle on this face moved. He did not have even the slightest trace of bitterness. That's not all. Gauba won his case. So I think this says everything about Chagla.
Yes, it does.
Yes. And the man was so courteous. Palkiwala says that if you were on your feet, counsel on his feet arguing, and if the judge, Chief Justice, wanted to converse with his brother judge, he would take leave of the counsel, say, excuse me, and then talk to his brother judge.
Remarkable.
This was kind of, simply unimaginable.
Unimaginable now. Yes.
Unimaginable.
Would you like to describe a typical working day in the
No,
life of when Chagla sat as a judge?
when you say that that is depicted by his great son, now no more, Iqbal Chagla, in the centenary edition of Roses in December,
Okay.
Iqbal depicts paints one of those typical working days of his father. I think Iqbal was just 3 years old. Father went to the bench. Iqbal was born on March 7th, 1938,
Right.
and Chagla went to the bench on 4th August 1941. So
Right.
just 3.5 years. So virtually all his memory would be of Chagla as a judge.
Yes.
Not remember him before that.
Initial years.
Yes. So he distinctly remembers the routine. One other important thing when we talk of Chagla is he was one of those judges who followed the English practice to the hilt. He never read court papers. He never carried any files home. They would begin with the morning newspaper and coffee and all that, and maybe correcting some judgments which had typed and brought, not reading anything, small corrections there. Then his secretary would come and any correspondence would be attended to. Bath and a hearty breakfast, to use the
Yes.
expression of Iqbal Chagla. And then he would be off to court. Again, court, they would have in the judges' lounge, all the judges would meet, a final cigar, and then to the court hall. Absolutely,
That time immersed in the judicial work in the court.
yes, yes, for judicial work in court. And he sat in court even if he had fever. He sat in court. He said, "My job at 11 o'clock is to be in court, nowhere else." Sick, or it was the kind of devotion that he had for his work. He would, as I said, he would not read. When Justice Shah, who later became Chief Justice of India, and the relationship between Shah and Chagla was such. The difference in age was just about 5.5 years.
Okay.
Chagla was born on the 30th of September 1900. J.C. Shah was born on the 22nd of January 1906. Shah was Chagla's student in the Bombay Government Law College. Then they were together at the Bombay bar.
Yes.
Then Shah joined Chagla on the bench
Okay.
in Bombay. And later, Shah went to the Supreme Court. Because Chagla, as you know, had declined,
Yes.
famously saying, "I would rather rule in hell than serve in heaven." Shah went to the Supreme Court, and after retirement, after his innings as a minister and all that, Chagla appeared before Shah,
Shah,
addressing
okay.
his student as "my lord." And I was told by my seniors, he remembered a specific instance where Chagla scolded Shah in the open court when they were, reluctant to grant leave. It seems he almost shouted at them, "If your lordships won't grant leave in this case, then why are you sitting here? In which other case would you grant leave? Leave granted." So, this was the kind of, and Shah would, as being a very studious person, he would have read every word in the file. So as soon as the court assembled, he would start asking questions, and the Chief Justice would say, "I have a very studious brother sitting with me who knows everything in the file, but as you know, I know nothing. So please tell me what the case is."
Okay.
And the beauty is, especially for the juniors, they say, when you're struggling to put across something, he would never insult you, or raw juniors, or not be able to put
Never
across,
embarrassed.
never embarrass you. He would be looking at the file and then he says, "Mr. So this is what you're trying to tell us." Then the lawyer would say, "Precisely, my lord, I could not do it. Your lordship has put it precisely." And they say justice was done. So this is the kind, if you talk of a judge, this is the ideal.
And Chagla was also known that after the court he would go for his game
Yes,
of bridge, etc.
yes,
And then he
yes,
would forget about the court while he's there in the
yes.
club.
See, he would never hesitate to accept any social invitation. Of course, that which would not come in the way of his functioning life. Otherwise, after court hours, during court hours, nothing. After court hours, any function he would attend, make speeches, meet people. As you said, he had a game of bridge every day. And there is again the incident which Iqbal Chagla mentions. Sirvai and Chagla. Sirvai was Advocate General, Chagla was Chief Justice. They would meet, and then when it was time for the game, Chagla would just see the watch and Sirvai would know it's time for the judge to go and come back, have his drink and then dinner.
Yes.
Went on almost 6
Personality
years.
of the man.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Sudhesh Pai,
Thank you.
and for your time. I'm sure this would interest our audience, and we would continue this. Thank you. Be with us.
Thank you.